Every child gets curious about their story. Kids in biological families may have a beautiful story surrounding their birth and childhood. But for kids from hard places, the story usually contains elements of pain, fear, and trauma. It can be hard to know where to start or what to say when it comes to sharing hard truths with your child. But it's important to remember that for better or worse, a child's story belongs to them. In the past, foster and adoptive parents were told to keep their children's background a secret, to lock the story up and throw away the key. But research has shown that in reality, secrecy often results in feelings of betrayal and shame as these children grow up and learn the truth. In her book, Telling the Truth to Your Adopted or Foster Child, Jane Schooler says, secrets create exclusion, destroy authenticity, produce fantasies, evoke fear, and kindle shame. Foster parents have a big responsibility as gatekeepers to the child's story. You may be wondering how to approach it, what details to share, and when. Let's explore 6 helpful tips for telling your child their story. These conversations can be heavy, and so are the feelings around them. That's why the first tip is to check your own emotions before stepping into a conversation with the child. Of course, you're going to have big feelings around your child's history. You may feel angry or embarrassed to acknowledge who hurt them and how. You may fear that the truth will cause your child pain, or maybe you're anxious about how your child will respond, or even how you will respond to your child. Say you have a teen whose mom stopped showing up for visits a few months ago. One day she asks the question you've been dreading. Has my mom really been working in Florida like she said? In reality, you've seen her mom around town and know the caseworker's been in touch with her. What do? Your first instinct may be to lie out of fear or even criticize her mom out of anger. But either of these would only damage the trust she has in you. Instead, you might take a deep breath and calmly say, "No, I saw her downtown last week, and your caseworker said she's been in town a while." You might be surprised when your daughter looks relieved and says, "That's what I thought." A child may not see their story the same way you do, so it's important to process your feelings in your own time and check them at the door before sharing anything with the child. Your feelings, however valid, are not the priority in that moment. The priority is communicating clearly and calmly with the child, which allows them to respond in their own way. The second tip is to create a safe environment to talk about their story. You can help your child feel safe asking questions or sharing thoughts with you through your willingness to explore the past without judgment. Look for opportunities to talk about foster care in everyday conversations. For example, say you see Simone Biles on TV, whom you know was once in foster care. You might mention her background to your child and see where the conversation goes. Children from hard places also benefit from seeing and interacting with other kids in foster care, like those they can meet at Childbridge events and gatherings. Wanting to protect children from hard truths may come from a place of love, but in reality, your child likely knows or remembers more than you realize. Your 5-year-old may not remember what she had for lunch, but she remembers the 4-letter words her birth mom screamed at her when she spilled her milk. The preteen you adopted as an infant may not remember the neglect she experienced before birth, but her body remembers and reacts to hunger by binge eating. Instead of avoiding hard truths, try to make room for your child to process them. When your little girl says, "You're not my real mom," your reaction will determine whether she feels safe to say more. Instead of taking it personally, get curious. Ask questions and remain open to the answers. Then, validate your child's feelings around them. When they have permission to talk and ask about confusing or scary things, children get the chance to make sense of memories they carry but don't understand. The third tip is to share information in a way that's age appropriate. While your child's age shouldn't change the level of honesty about their story, it may change the level of detail you share. Let's explore how you might handle a situation with children of different ages. You walk into a gas station with your 3-year-old when he loudly announces that this is where the cops took his dad away. At this age, he can't process all the details surrounding his dad's arrest, but he can tell you what he remembers: the flashing lights, the uniforms, the yelling. And you can help by putting it into context for him. Take him away from listening ears before asking what he remembers. When he's done, you might say, "I bet that was really scary to see your dad like that. It's a police officer's job to keep people safe. When your dad made an unsafe choice, the police came to protect the people around him." However, at 10 years old, this child will need more information from you in order to make sense of his story. By now, he probably knows his dad did something illegal to get arrested, but maybe not what. He knows that he hasn't seen his dad since, but not why. Explaining to a 10-year-old that his dad is in prison for robbing a convenience store to pay for his drugs sounds daunting. But done gently and without accusation, it could help relieve some confusion or fear in his mind about what happened to his dad and why. Just remember that for many children from hard places, their biological age doesn't match their developmental age. If your 10-year-old is mentally or emotionally closer to 6, you may need to wait to share some details of their story until they're ready. In her book, Telling the Truth to Your Adopted or Foster Child, Jane Schooler suggests that parents share a child's full story with them by the time they're developmentally 12 years old. Typically, at the age of 12, a child's brain begins to seek context to make sense of their memories. Otherwise, their imagination takes over. Sharing the truth in a sensitive way protects the child from the lies they might one day tell themselves. The 4th tip is to be honest with your child. Kids have a talent for knowing when a grown-up is lying. Have you ever tried to keep ice cream in your house a secret? It doesn't take the kids long to figure out it's there, does it? And that talent doesn't end with desserts. It's tempting to sugarcoat a child's story and omit the big traumas, but the truth is not yours to hide. You may be thinking, "You don't know my child's story. It's worse than you can imagine." Maybe your daughter overhears you telling her sister's birth story and asks about her own. You know that she was conceived from prostitution, and your heart wants to withhold that painful truth from her. But doing so also hides the fullness of God's beautiful redemption of her story. As it becomes age appropriate, start by explaining how sex leads to pregnancy, then how some women sell sex to strangers and get pregnant that way. Gently tell her that while this is not God's original design for bringing babies into the world, He still had His hand in her story from the beginning and has good plans for her life. Allow her to ask questions and give her more information over time as her understanding grows with maturity. Yes, this story might be truly heartbreaking, but hiding the truth does not allow your child to heal from it. In fact, without the true story, your child will likely create one in its place. Children of all ages develop their imagination through fantasies. They might make up a story about where they came from, what's happened to them, and who their biological parents are to fill in the gaps. These fantasies can result in shame or disappointment when the truth comes to light. Honesty protects a child from unnecessary fears and unrealistic expectations. The 5th tip is to always speak about a child's biological family with honor. You've probably heard the phrase, "If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all." Well, when you have something hard to share about your child's parents, I'd encourage you to ask the Holy Spirit for a kind way to say whatever needs to be said. When a child hears someone talking poorly about their birth parents, they may start to believe the same things apply to them. No matter what kind of relationship they have with their birth family, they're related by blood. And in a child's mind, this could mean that if their parents are bad, they must be bad too. You can't avoid the truth of what's happened to your child, but you can be aware of the language you use when talking about it with them. Take the time to remove any anger, frustration, or even dismissive language from your side of these conversations. One trick you can use is to talk only about the facts without adding any narrative to the story. Listen to the difference between these two statements. I'm sorry your mom didn't show up to your visit again. I just don't understand why she always puts drugs before her own child. Or, Mama Jane really struggles with addiction, and addiction can cause people to put drugs first, even before the people they really love. How are you feeling? Hear the difference? One blames while the other explains. It's not your job to influence your child's feelings about their birth parents. It's simply your job to provide information that can help them make sense of their story and to allow them to express their own feelings about it. The final tip is to remember that your child's story belongs to them. They should get to choose how they respond to it, who knows about it, and how to share it. Well-meaning friends, teachers, and even strangers might overstep with their questions. It's your job to respect and protect your child's story. Imagine an 11-year-old girl gets placed in your home. She's starting a new school, has a new therapist, and misses her mom. One way to show sensitivity to her story is to ask her how she'd like to be introduced at school and give her options for what to call you. She may want to call you mom or dad when her friends are around, but by your first name when they're not. Her need to feel normal or loyalty to her mom might outweigh her desire to share her story. While her therapist would benefit from knowing the details of her history, her teachers and your friends won't need the same information. Instead, share only the necessary details with the necessary people, leaving the door open for your child to share more if they choose. This will help build trust with the child, who may not hear you call her name down the hall 5 times, but knows when grown-ups are talking about her in hushed whispers. Talking to a child you love about events and people who have hurt them is never easy. But by following these tips, you allow God to accomplish His purposes for them in 3 ways. You give them the chance to process and accept the truth in a safe environment. You build trust and help them heal through a healthy relationship with a safe adult. And you relieve the shame they might feel should they discover the truth on their own and realize you chose to avoid it. When you check your own emotions, create a safe space, keep the conversation honest yet age appropriate, speak with honor, and give them authority over their own story, you give your child the opportunity to heal and learn from the past. We hope you can use these tips to bravely start or continue a conversation with your child.